Dave Pearson always envisioned a simple life that balanced family closeness with the satisfaction of running a business. After completing his military service, he launched a company in the suburbs of Philadelphia, believing that hard work would lead to success. While he was devoted to his work, his dedication to his family, his wife Linda, his daughter Eli, and his loyal employees, was even stronger. Over time, he built a prosperous business that felt like an extended family, with employees forming connections that extended beyond the office walls. The company thrived thanks to teamwork, and Dave took pride not only in the growing revenues but also in the strong sense of community he had fostered. Employees celebrated, mourned, and supported each other, creating bonds that brought Dave immense satisfaction. One Friday evening, Dave sat happily in his quiet office, feeling proud of his 33 employees and their seamless teamwork. Especially with his wife Linda managing the finances and his brother Rich in sales, he had no idea that this happiness wouldn't last. His thoughts were interrupted by his office manager, Hannah, who asked if he needed anything for the next day's barbecue. Dave smiled and jokingly asked why she called him boss when she really ran everything. Hannah agreed with a grin and asked again if he needed anything. Dave replied that Linda had everything covered. Seeing Linda nearby, Dave called her over. She joked, asking if he was referring to her, and Dave playfully asked who else he'd be talking about, making everyone laugh. He explained that he and Hannah were debating who the real boss was. Linda smiled, saying everyone knew that Hannah ran the show, to which Hannah added that Linda wore the pants at home. Dave laughed, choosing not to respond, and Linda joked that it was better when neither of them wore pants, causing more laughter. Dave expressed how happy he was that they were still in their honeymoon phase after 17 years. Hannah then asked if they needed anything else for the next day, and Linda confirmed that everything was set, asking how many people would be coming. Hannah replied there would be 28 employees, 26 family members, and 31 kids. Linda assured them there would be enough food and then asked if Hannah was bringing anyone. Hannah smiled but said she would be coming alone. Linda offered to set her up with someone, but Hannah, more seriously, asked her not to. Dave stepped in, telling Linda to let Hannah be, reassuring her that Hannah was fine. Linda apologized, saying her offer was out of love, which Hannah acknowledged but kept her thoughts to herself. Later, as Dave and Linda walked to the car to plan their usual Friday night, Dave asked if Linda had made the reservation. She confirmed and listed the dishes she'd ordered: Mongolian beef for Dave, General Tso's chicken for Eli, and a platter for herself. As they drove home, Linda noticed that Dave had grown quiet and asked if something was wrong. Dave hesitated before admitting that, while life was great, he was starting to feel the speed at which Eli was growing up. Soon, it would be just the two of them as Eli would begin having her own date nights and eventually go to college. Linda reassured him, saying that Eli would always be his little girl, but Dave sighed, acknowledging that kids grow up whether he liked it or not. Trying to cheer him up, Linda suggested turning their Friday nights into movie nights, just the two of them. Dave smiled at the idea, feeling a bit better. When Dave and Linda entered the house, their daughter Eli ran to hug her father, beaming with excitement, while their dog Banjo barked happily and sniffed the food bags. Eli excitedly announced that she had aced her geometry test. Dave smiled, reminding her that he had told her everything would be fine. Eli admitted she hadn't believed him but kissed his cheek in gratitude. Linda watched proudly, noticing the strong bond between Eli and her father, just like the one she had shared with her own late father. During dinner, they engaged in a lively conversation and then moved to the family room. Dave settled in and asked whose turn it was to pick the movie. Eli quickly claimed the turn and chose Robin Hood, Men in Tights, an old comedy Dave had mentioned. Dave laughed, joking about how old the movie was and expressing surprise that she hadn't picked the next John Wick movie. Linda chimed in, declaring there would be no more action movies that night. Eli laughed, recalling that she'd lost count of the bodies in the last movie after 100, but assured them that tonight's movie would be fun. They settled on the couch, Dave in the middle with Eli and Linda on each side. As they relaxed, Dave couldn't help but feel the bittersweetness of how fast Eli was growing up. The thought of her eventual departure filled him with unease. The next morning, Dave's brother Rich and his wife, Sonia, arrived early to help with preparations for the big gathering. While Sonia and Eli worked inside, Dave, Linda, and Rich took care of the outdoor tasks. While cleaning the pool, Dave felt a familiar rumble and headed inside, calling to Linda that he needed to use the bathroom. Linda jokingly warned him not to use the guest bathroom that Eli had just cleaned. Dave decided to use the basement bathroom, appreciating the quiet, dark space where his mind could wander. As he settled in, he overheard a conversation through the small window, recognizing Linda's voice speaking nervously with Rich. She expressed her worry that Dave might catch them, but Rich reassured her, saying Dave was busy. Dave's heart sank as he listened, dread growing with every word. Linda mentioned that her kids had brought home forms for a DNA test and asked if Eli's school had done the same. Rich replied that he wasn't aware. Then, Rich asked the question Dave had feared like a punch to the gut: had Linda ever discovered if he was Eli's father? Linda admitted she had been avoiding it but would check with the school. Rich hesitated before asking if they should end their affair, recognizing the risk. Linda firmly refused, saying they had gotten away with it for years and didn't want Dave to find out, as it would ruin both of them. Rich suggested he could start fresh, but Linda angrily called him an idiot and confirmed their next meeting for Tuesday at 6 in Valley View before parting ways. Left stunned, Dave closed the window, feeling sick, tears streaming down his face as he whispered, "What am I going to do?" The pain was overwhelming, but he knew he couldn't confront them with a house full of guests arriving soon. He had to act normal, though his heart was shattered. After almost 20 minutes in the basement, Dave knew he had to leave. "What can I do?" he thought frantically. "Ice," he whispered. Going out to get ice would give him some time to gather his thoughts. He splashed water on his face, trying to hide his distress, and climbed the stairs, determined to act normal. Seeing Sonia, he said, "Tell Linda I'm going out to get some ice." She replied, "Sure," unaware of the storm he was going through. At the store, Dave took a few minutes to walk around and think. Walking usually cleared his mind, but this time, tears welled up. Frustrated, he yelled out. He wasn't used to feeling this emotional, and it made him angry. He needed to keep control and come up with a plan to get through the party and the coming days without anyone noticing. The walk calmed him a bit, and he began to formulate a strategy. Realizing he'd been gone too long, he bought 8 bags of ice and returned home, bracing himself for what was to come. Eli met him first, noticing his distress, and asked what was wrong. Dave quickly lied, saying he had an upset stomach and had to make a stop. He asked her to put the ice in the freezer, explaining that he needed to lie down. Worried, Eli agreed and said she'd tell Linda. Dave hoped that a few hours alone would help him regain control. When Linda checked on him, he told her he had stomach cramps and was vomiting, but no fever. She sympathized and told him to rest, saying everyone would understand if he didn't join the party. Only Dave paced and planned. He concluded that divorce was inevitable and that both Rich and Linda would be fired. He thought about the financial impact and the effects on Sonia, the children, and their parents. But his biggest concern was Eli. He feared losing her, regardless of their biological relationship. As he tried to keep it together, Eli came upstairs, and Dave pretended to be asleep, feeling her gently touch his hair. She asked if he was okay, and he softly replied that he needed to rest. Before the guests arrived, his dog Banjo jumped on the bed and licked his face, unknowingly wiping away his tears. Eli smiled, saying she'd brought a friend and that she loved him, giving him a kiss on the forehead. At that moment, Dave felt her love and knew he had made the right decision. He realized that Eli needed to know the truth before any confrontation. Although he hated the necessity of it, Dave couldn't understand Linda and Rich's betrayal and knew he would soon expose it, shattering the perfect life he once had. Bitterness filled him as he thought, damn them. Despite everything, Dave managed to be sociable with the guests. Linda and Rich were too busy to interact with him, which was a relief. Hannah noticed something was wrong but said nothing. Dave kept Eli close, drawing strength from her presence. She assumed his need for closeness was due to his supposed illness, which helped him maintain his cover. After helping with the cleanup, Dave announced he would go to bed early, choosing the guest room as an excuse, which Linda accepted. He felt satisfied that his plan for the first night had worked. The next morning, the family attended church together. During the service, Dave pretended to receive a text message, catching Linda's attention. She gave him a questioning look, but he whispered, later. After the service, Linda asked about the message, and Dave told her that the owner of Gupta Water Equipment needed him for a meeting on Monday and that he'd be back by Tuesday. When Linda asked where he'd be, Dave replied, Pittsburgh, adding that he would leave that afternoon to get enough rest. Then Linda asked if they were still going to her parents' house for lunch. Dave confirmed but mentioned he'd drive separately so Linda and Eli could stay longer. Dave felt satisfied with how things were unfolding, successfully avoiding Rich during brunch. Linda was too busy to notice his emotional distance. After lunch, Dave left, stopped by the house to pick up documents, and checked into a hotel near his business. Then he called his lawyer, Bill, who was also a good friend. Dave explained the situation to Bill, who had gone through a similar divorce. Although Bill wasn't a family lawyer, he recommended his colleague Angela, who specialized in such cases. Bill called Angela, and she agreed to meet them for dinner. During dinner, Dave learned that Bill and Angela were engaged. They spent the evening discussing strategies, and Angela scheduled a meeting for Monday to finalize the details. It seemed that Dave would be ready to hand Linda the divorce papers by Friday. At one point, Dave stepped out to call home, pretending he was already in Pittsburgh. Linda answered, asking how he was feeling. Dave said he was a bit tired but fine, then asked if Eli was there. Linda confirmed that she was watching TV beside her. Dave asked her to put the call on speaker, and Eli excitedly told him she missed him. Dave assured her he'd be home for their date on Tuesday, and Eli brightened, saying she'd pick a movie for them. After saying goodbye, Linda felt slightly hurt by the brief conversation but assumed Dave was simply exhausted from the long trip. Dave opened the hotel window, hoping for fresh air, but was hit by the smell of a trash dumpster. Perfect, he thought, reflecting on the mess his life had become. He closed the window and spent the night wrestling with his thoughts. The next day's meeting with Bill and Angela went well. That night, Dave made another brief call home, claiming he was having dinner with clients but was actually strategizing alone in his hotel room, dreading the day he would have to explain everything to Eli. He knew it would force her to grow up too fast, a conversation he dreaded with all his heart. Tuesday morning, Dave finalized his strategy in a meeting with his lawyer to resolve company matters and severance packages for Linda and Rich. After lunch, he arrived at the office, pretending he had just returned from Pittsburgh. Seeing Hannah stirred emotions he thought he had under control. Instead of heading straight to his office, he smiled awkwardly and then closed the door behind him. Pull it together, he murmured to himself. He reviewed his plans, took a deep breath, and called Hannah into his office. "Hello, Dave," she greeted him, but her smile quickly faded when she saw his tearful face. Ignoring office etiquette, she rushed to hug him. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "No," he replied, his voice shaking. "I'm not sick, but something is very wrong." Hannah pulled a chair close and took his hand. "What's going on? Is it Linda?" she asked, seeing the pain in his eyes. He nodded, struggling to speak. "Rich," he finally whispered. "Your brother?" she asked in surprise. She paced the room, furious, then calmed herself to hug Dave again. "Did you find out before the party?" Dave nodded, explaining how he overheard their conversation and realized the truth. "Is there any chance you'll stay with her?" Hannah asked. They've been involved for 16 years. I can't get past that, Dave said. Hannah poured them both a rum and coke, and after a few sips, they moved on to business. Rich and Linda will be dismissed after Friday. I want Sonia to take over Linda's position, but I'll need you to cover her duties temporarily. I can handle it, Hannah assured him. As for sales, I'm considering promoting Dev Leon. She's shown interest, and I think she'll do well. I agree, said Hannah. Tammy Fields could replace Dev. Good. Let them know by Friday. We'll meet Monday to discuss their promotions. Can you also draft the job descriptions by then? Of course. Anything else? Tears filled Dave's eyes. You're one of my closest friends, and I'm losing Linda, my best friend. I might need to lean on you more. Hannah hugged him tightly. It's a privilege. After leaving his office, Hannah felt deeply for Dave, knowing he didn't deserve this pain. The next morning, Linda paced in the kitchen, tormented by her choices. She hadn't been with Rich in almost a year and wondered why she'd gotten involved with him in the first place. Determined to end things once and for all, she convinced herself that Rich wouldn't tell Dave since he had too much to lose. Lost in thought, Dave walked in, and she threw her arms around him, kissing him. Surprised, Dave asked what had brought on the affection. Linda said she loved him and had missed him since the picnic. Dave, lying, said he missed her too, while wondering how she'd react if he asked about Rich. When Linda asked about his plans with Eli, he mentioned taking her to Vincent's for Italian food and a movie. Linda asked if he had plans for the evening. When Dave asked why, she flinched slightly and said she was going to the mall to shop. Dave joked about shopping with no intention to buy anything, and Linda forced a smile, saying she might see if anything caught her eye. Shop safely, he added, immediately regretting it when Linda questioned his meaning. He brushed it off as a joke, noticing her discomfort. Fortunately, Eli came down the stairs, breaking the tension. She greeted Dave excitedly, and they discussed their plans. As they left, Linda felt a mix of pride, love, guilt, and remorse, deciding that tonight would be the last time with Rich. After waiting 20 minutes, she grabbed her keys and left to meet him. As Dave and Eli drove away, anxiety washed over him. He took a deep breath, held Eli's hand, and apologized for the change in their plans. Eli, concerned, asked why. Dave explained they wouldn't be having a fancy dinner or seeing a movie but needed to talk and look at something important. Eli, worried, asked if it was a secret from her mom. Dave assured her, asking for patience until they weren't driving. They drove in silence to Chick-fil-A, picked up food, and then went to a small office complex near Valley View Motel. Eli asked why they were there, and Dave hesitated before revealing that Linda was having an affair and would soon be meeting her lover there. Eli refused to believe it, but Dave sadly confirmed her fears. They watched as two cars pulled into the motel. Eli saw her mother's car, followed by Uncle Rich's, and they both watched as Linda and Rich got out and entered a motel room together, embracing. Devastated, Eli hugged her father as they took photos of the encounter. They watched Linda and Rich hug before entering the room. Dave apologized to Eli, who, through tears, understood the gravity of the situation and promised to stay with her father, rejecting her mother. Dave vowed to do everything possible to keep her with him. Enraged, Eli declared that if forced to stay with her mother, she would make her life miserable. Dave knew it wasn't the time to encourage a more open view of his relationship with Linda, so he warned Eli that the hardest part was yet to come and that they'd need to act normally until he confronted Linda on Friday. Eli, overwhelmed, expressed doubt about her ability to keep calm, but Dave reassured her, saying they'd get through it together. They left the motel to find a quiet place to talk. Dave drove them to a secluded picnic area in a nearby park, where they spent the night talking, planning, crying, and venting their frustrations. The experience brought them closer than ever, making them feel like it was them against the world. They returned home shortly after 10 p.m., and Eli wasn't sure how she managed to act normal for the next 3 days. "Dad, I'm not sure I can see her without wanting to slap her," she confessed. "Watch your language, sweetheart," Dave gently reprimanded her. "You may not want to hear this, but eventually, you'll need to maintain some kind of relationship with her. It will never be the same." "I won't respect her," Eli replied bitterly. "For now, let's stick to the plan," Dave suggested. "When we get home, just say you're tired and go straight to bed." "All right, I can do that," Eli agreed. After a pause, she added, "Dad, I really love you. I don't know how you're handling this, but I'm here for you." Dave smiled as they pulled into the driveway. "How did I get so lucky to have such an amazing daughter?" he said, his voice full of emotion. "You're no slouch, Dad. You're the best man I know and the best father a girl could ask for." They entered the house quietly, relieved to find Linda already in bed. Eli kept her emotions in check as Dave found Linda pretending to be asleep, knowing she had been with Rich. He was grateful they avoided any interaction. They lay back to back in bed, each lost in their painful thoughts, tears falling silently. The next morning, Dave woke up, smelled the coffee, and got dressed for his trip. He checked on Eli, who was already in the kitchen, happily making pancakes. Dave hugged her and kissed her forehead just as Linda came in and greeted them. Dave asked Eli if she had slept well after her date with that handsome boy. Eli confirmed and then asked Linda if he had mentioned it yet. Linda looked confused, so Dave explained that he needed to go back to Pittsburgh, and Eli wanted to come along. Linda agreed, saying Eli would make the trip more pleasant. They quickly finished breakfast and were soon on their way, relieved to be away from home. On the road, Eli asked how she had done, and Dave assured her she did great, adding that her idea to come along was smart, making it unnecessary to pretend. Eli joked about her bad acting, and Dave chuckled. After a pause, Eli asked if Dave had thought about her being there when he confronted Linda. Dave was unsure, but Eli insisted that she wanted to be present, even when he confronted Rich. Dave gently reminded her about her language, and Eli replied that the situation warranted it. Admiring her strength, Dave asked what she would say if she were there. Eli wasn't entirely sure, but she said she wanted her mom to know she couldn't hide from her and that she was on Dave's side. They checked into a hotel, and in the elevator, Eli quietly asked when the affair had started. Dave said he didn't know exactly, but it had been a long time. Tears welled up in Eli's eyes as she started to ask another question, but Dave gently interrupted, reassuring her that whatever the answer, it wouldn't change anything between them. They walked to their room in silence. Once inside, Eli asked if Dave wanted to know everything. Dave wasn't sure and asked if she wanted to know. With a trembling voice, Eli said she knew who her father was but thought it might be wise to find out, adding that she didn't know if she could handle having two unfaithful parents. Dave gently asked if she wanted to know, and Eli admitted she did. Dave suggested waiting a few months, explaining he had reasons to hold off for now. Eli hugged him tightly, tears in her eyes, and they began unpacking quietly, finding comfort in each other's presence. During their hotel stay, Dave and Eli stayed connected, especially when Dave had meetings with lawyers or managed other matters. Eli spent time by the pool, swimming or reading. On the first day, Hannah joined them to discuss strategies, and later, they had dinner together. Eli and Hannah got along well, and back in the room, Eli opened up to Dave, mentioning that she sensed Hannah had feelings for him, which surprised Dave. When Eli asked if anything had ever happened between them, Dave was taken aback and assured her he had never come close to betraying her mother. Eli apologized tearfully for doubting him, and Dave comforted her, saying her questions were understandable. Both wondered why Linda had been unfaithful, hoping for answers soon. On Friday morning, Hannah called Linda to discuss work, asking about the end-of-month closing, mentioning that the tech team needed her laptop for updates and a virus check. Linda confirmed she'd be in the office all day and agreed to have lunch with Hannah, who felt a mix of relief and sadness, knowing what was coming. That Friday morning, Eli found her father looking out the window with tears in his eyes. When she asked if he was okay, Dave admitted he wasn't and asked if she was ready for a difficult day. Eli sighed, acknowledging they had no other choice. Dave then asked if she thought she could forgive Linda and stay. Eli admitted she couldn't see her mother the same way after all the lies. They hugged, drawing strength from each other, with Eli expressing gratitude for being included. Moved by her maturity, Dave asked if she was all right with everything. She replied that she was, as long as he was. They shared a small smile before getting ready for the day. After breakfast, they packed, checked out, and headed to the lawyer's office. Bill and Angela were there, impressed by Eli's composure during the divorce discussions. Eli participated actively, offering thoughtful suggestions. Angela remarked on how well Eli was handling the situation, and Eli expressed an interest in law, mentioning it was her favorite TV show genre. Angela encouraged her to consider working with their team in the future, and Eli was enthusiastic. Watching Eli interact with the lawyers reassured Dave that she was strong enough for what lay ahead. After lunch, Dave and Eli ran some errands, returning home around 3:30 p.m. The weight of the impending confrontation weighed heavily, and the silence between them added to the tension. Dave laid the evidence on the dining table and suggested they play cribbage to pass the time. They had about an hour before everything would change. The sound of the garage door opening signaled that the moment had come. Eli and Dave sat at the table, no longer pretending. Linda entered with packages, cheerfully announcing that the Chinese food had arrived and that they should start the party. But as she saw their solemn faces, reality struck. "What's going on?" Linda asked, approaching the table. Dave spoke in a low but firm voice, "Sit down, Linda." She hesitated but sat, noticing the photo of her meeting with Rich. Stunned, she almost lost her balance, tears filling her eyes as she whispered, "No, no, no." Looking up, she saw Dave and Eli staring at her with disdain. "Please, Dave, don't do what I deserve," Linda pleaded through tears. Dave paused before asking softly, "What do you think you deserve?" "Please, don't leave me," Linda begged. "Don't leave you, like you destroyed our marriage and family?" Dave responded, his voice controlled but bitter. "It was a terrible mistake," she cried. "How long did this mistake last?" Dave demanded sharply. Linda hesitated, unsure of how much he knew. "It doesn't matter, once is too many times. We can't just get past this." "Are you serious?" "How long, Linda?" Dave finally demanded. Linda admitted reluctantly, "Since before you met Sonia, about 17 years. Dave replied bitterly, "You cheated for 17 years and think that doesn't matter?" "It was selfish and painful," Linda conceded. Unable to hold back, Eli erupted, "Mom, how could you do this? You've destroyed Dad and me." Dave abruptly stood, his anger boiling. "Who the hell are you, Linda?" "Yes, let's see," Eli added angrily, "liar, cheater, traitor, and witch." Overwhelmed, Linda looked to Dave for support. "Please, Dave, tell her not to insult me," Linda pleaded. Dave replied coldly, "When you stop lying, I will." The room fell silent, broken only by Linda's quiet sobs. Finally, Linda asked, "What are you going to do?" "Go to your room, clean up, and calm down. Your crying just makes us angrier. We'll talk before Eli and I leave, but we need to figure this out." "Where are you going?" Linda asked, panic in her voice. "That's not your concern, and we won't be fixing anything in a few hours." "Go upstairs," Dave ordered. Linda staggered up the stairs. As planned, Dave sent a message to Linda's sister, Celia, "All set. She'll need you. Will you be here in 30 minutes? "Understood," Celia replied. Linda sat on the bed, sobbing. After a while, she started thinking of ways to save her family, but the harsh reality hit her: this would no longer be her home. She had ruined everything for nothing. Fresh tears flowed as she processed the loss. 20 minutes later, she returned downstairs, still upset but more composed. Dave began bluntly, "First, you know you're fired, right?" Linda's tears began anew. "Why?" "I'm good at my job," she protested. "Do you really need to ask?" "I don't trust you anymore, and I don't want you around," Dave replied coldly. Linda looked down, struggling to control her emotions. "What else?" Dave handed her a stack of papers, explaining they contained the documents she was expecting, along with her severance check and agreement. He instructed her to open a separate bank account and review the documents, suggesting she hire a lawyer. He offered to cover the initial legal costs but made it clear that if she chose to fight, those expenses would be her responsibility. Shaking, Linda said the situation felt harsh and asked if they could try to fix things. Dave ignored her plea, informing her that Celia would be there soon to support her and suggesting she go with Celia for a while because he wasn't ready to talk. He added that once they were both ready, she could return and stay in the guest room until permanent arrangements were made. Desperation crept into Linda's voice as she asked if she could stay. Dave, losing patience, exploded, "I don't want to see your face for a while." His words wounded her deeply. Linda paused before asking if there was really no chance for reconciliation. Dave replied with finality, saying he didn't see a way back, citing the 17 years she had spent with his brother, how she had destroyed 2 marriages, and divided 3 families. Almost in disbelief, Linda questioned, 3? Dave confirmed, explaining that it wasn't just their marriage and Sonia's with Rich but also their parents, as his brother was now dead to him. The gravity of her actions sank in, and Linda murmured, "I ask God for forgiveness." Dave acknowledged that while God might forgive her, maybe he would too someday. Just then, Celia arrived. Dave hugged her and called for a lie from her room. As they prepared to leave, he glanced at Linda, each of them seeing the pain on the other's face, feeling the full weight of their lives being torn apart. Their 18-year bond was now severely broken, and it would take time, if ever, to heal. Dave and Eli drove in silence, aware of the plan but unsure if they were truly ready. Dave initially thought of savoring the moment but quickly realized the pain it would cause, especially to his parents, who were already at Sonia and Rich's house for dinner. Upon arrival, his heart tightened, but Eli squeezed his hand and said, "Dad, you'll get through this. Stay close to your grandparents, and give them the photo when I give it to Sonia," he reminded her. "I've got it," she replied confidently. They entered the house just as dinner was ending. Eli hugged her grandparents, and Sonia greeted Dave. "Hey, we weren't expecting you too, but there's plenty of food." Dave kissed Sonia's forehead, thanked her, and said they needed to talk. He handed Sonia a photo of Rich and Linda together, while Eli gave the same to her grandparents. The room filled with gasps as everyone processed the images. Dave then handed a copy to Rich, demanding an explanation. Rich turned pale and sank into a chair. His father demanded answers. Sonia slapped Rich, cursing him. Dave intervened, urging them to let Rich speak, but Rich stammered, unable to defend himself. He asked where the photo came from, and Dave replied bluntly that it was the wrong question, insisting Rich admit the truth. Sonia pleaded for an explanation, and Dave revealed that Rich and Linda had been having an affair since before Sonia met Rich. Sonia broke down, lashing out at Rich before collapsing into tears and running into the living room, where her mother and Eli comforted her. Their father confronted Rich, demanding confirmation. Rich admitted the truth, and through tears, his father expressed disgust, calling Rich a disgrace for betraying his own brother and wife. Rich tried to apologize, but Dave interrupted, declaring that Rich was dead to him and that he never wanted to see him again. He also informed Rich that he was fired and told his father he no longer considered Rich his brother. His father tried to calm Dave, but Dave was resolute, saying that if Rich stayed around, he would leave, and if it happened too often, his father would have made his choice. His father sighed, understanding Dave's position but asking him not to completely cut off Rich. Dave agreed but warned that the situation wouldn't be easily resolved. Sonia returned, shouting at Rich to leave and pack his things, a command echoed by her father, who told Rich not to think of staying with them. Rich, teary-eyed, looked at his mother but saw only contempt. As Rich went to gather his belongings, Dave stopped him, demanding his office keys and instructing him to report to Bill Hardwick on Monday to return the company car and receive a severance package. Dave also took Rich's company laptop, which caused Rich to panic. Rich protested, saying he had personal items on the computer, but Dave insisted it was company property and that any personal files would be returned on Monday. In desperation, Rich lunged at Dave, throwing a punch, but Dave reacted swiftly, causing Rich to fall to the floor. The room erupted in chaos as others tried to intervene, but Dave's father finally calmed him with a hug as they both stood. Rich lay semi-conscious on the floor, defeated. Regaining composure, Dave apologized to Sonia for the abrupt reveal and asked if they could talk privately over the weekend. Sonia, uncertain, agreed. Dave then apologized to his parents, and his mother gently assured him they understood and would talk later. Dave accepted, then turned to Eli and asked if she was ready to go home. Eli stayed by his side, ready to leave. Before leaving, Dave asked his father if he and his mother would stay to help Sonia and make sure Rich left quietly. His father nodded, assuring him they would handle it. Dave commented resignedly that now it was just him and Eli. His father reassured him they would be there for him as well. Dave and Eli left in silence, Dave lamenting the scene but feeling some relief at letting out his anger. However, a more pressing thought soon occupied his mind, and Eli noticed too. Why was Uncle Rich so protective of his computer bag? Wondered Dave. I ask myself the same thing, Dave responded. Let's go home and find out. Dad, are you okay? You seemed out of control back there, Eli asked with evident concern. I'm fine, just sore, Dave replied with a forced laugh. I was worried you might hurt Grandpa when he tried to stop you, Eli admitted. I guess I was more than a little out of control, huh? Dave reflected on his actions. Definitely, but it probably felt good, Eli said with a small smile, sharing a look of understanding. Both were aware of the tension but also of the bond between them. Meanwhile, Rich was packing his belongings into suitcases and garbage bags, furious that his affair had been exposed and that Dave had taken his computer bag. He made sure to pack a lockbox in one of his bags, knowing he would need its contents. Without saying goodbye, he drove north, determined to disappear, unsure when Dave would uncover all his secrets. Rich's plans were scattered at best. He intended to find a small town in Wyoming, or maybe Idaho, rent a place with cash, and abandon his car further west. He thought about stealing a vehicle or taking a train or bus to avoid detection. Without access to his computer files, he felt lost. How did everything fall apart so quickly? He muttered angrily, unaware had overlooked two crucial details in his panic. On the way home, Dave realized they hadn't eaten, so they grabbed some fast food. When they returned to an empty house, they felt both relief and sadness at Linda's absence. After dinner, Dave took Rich's computer bag and began inspecting its contents. Everything seemed normal until he found an envelope from a significant client, Brandy Water Practice, containing a check made out to Rich's cleaning services for $99,900. Suspecting it was a bribe, Dave murmured to himself about Rich's activities as he rifled through the papers without finding anything immediately suspicious. He powered on the computer and discovered a hidden file, recognizing its importance. He called his lawyer friend, Bill, without delay. When Bill asked how things had gone, Dave responded seriously that it was as expected but that he urgently needed help. Dave explained the gravity of the situation, asking Bill to come over. Bill offered to bring Angela, but Dave said it wasn't necessary, though she was welcome. Bill arrived 25 minutes later. Dave showed him the check and the contents of the hidden file. After examining the evidence, Bill confirmed Dave's suspicions, indicating that it pointed to bribery, extortion, and potentially tax evasion, crimes that could lead to federal charges. Dave, concerned, asked if the FBI might need to get involved, and Bill confirmed it was likely. Rich could be facing prison time. When Dave asked what to do, Bill advised him to contact someone in the FBI, emphasizing the need to act swiftly, especially if Rich was unstable. Bill left a message with his FBI contact and returned to Dave, suggesting they meet with the agent early the following morning. Bill recommended taking the computer bag and the check with him in case Rich tried to retrieve them, which Dave agreed to. As Bill was leaving, he joked about Dave making a habit of after-hours legal services, to which Dave played along, asking what kind of retainer Bill had in mind. Bill suggested a bottle of 14-year-old Balvenie single malt, and Dave agreed, smiling for the first time that night. Before leaving, Bill advised Dave not to give Rich the indemnity agreement as it was written to avoid alerting him about the FBI's involvement. Dave suggested adding a civil settlement clause, and Bill agreed before heading out. Dave had planned to speak with Sonia and her parents on Saturday, but an early morning call from Bill changed that. They had a meeting scheduled at 10 a.m. with FBI agents in Philadelphia. Ali insisted on accompanying him, as they made decisions together. During the meeting, Dave and Bill presented the evidence to Agent Myers, who then called his supervisor, Jack Sims. After reviewing the documents, Jack rubbed his chin thoughtfully and asked, "We have a spreadsheet of bribes, an unpaid check from the last one, and details of an offshore account. How much money is in the account?" $85,000, Agent Myers confirmed. "I think so," Dave replied. Rich had been allowed to negotiate project prices as long as the margin didn't drop below 23%. It looked like he had set prices just above that limit in exchange for bribes. "You have 14 clients involved," Agent Myers continued. "You know they'll face charges as well." "Yes," Dave acknowledged. "Do you know where Rich is?" Myers asked. "No," Dave admitted. "I was supposed to meet with Bill on Monday for the indemnity, but given how Rich reacted when I took his computer bag, and the fact that his family kicked him out, he's probably on the run." Agent Myers cut off Dave's worries. "Steve, track his phone," he ordered. After a while, Steve returned. "He's on the move, heading west on the interstate in Ohio. We'll monitor him and aim to arrest him on Sunday night," Myers decided. "We'll coordinate with local authorities to detain him for 48 hours without charges, giving us time to prepare formal charges by Monday." On the way home, Dave, Bill, and Ali chatted lightly, though Dave had other concerns, particularly about Ali's DNA test, which could reveal if Rich was her father. Dave had planned to pursue 18 years of child support, but with Rich likely heading to prison, that plan was no longer necessary, and Dave felt a sense of relief. Bill dropped off Dave and Ali, and they agreed to meet with Sonia and Dave's parents later. During the meeting, Dave's mother cried over her youngest son's betrayal, while his father was filled with rage. Sonia, however, was worried about her future and that of her son. "Dave, what am I going to do? How are we going to handle this?" Sonia asked with a trembling voice. Dave outlined a plan. First, she needed a lawyer for the divorce and could use Dave's attorney, Angela Hall. "If Rich ends up in prison, you should get the majority of your shared assets," he said. "The stolen money from the company will be recovered, and you'll need some of it to reorganize. The rest will go into a trust for you and the kids. I know you have a business degree, so I'd love it if you could take on Linda's role in the company. You can work from home and still take care of the kids. How does that sound?" Sonia hugged Dave in relief, and his parents also offered their support. Dave smiled at Ali, who felt proud of how her father always took care of the family. On the way home, Dave mentioned the DNA test again. "Honey, have you thought more about the DNA test?" "I have," Ali responded. It's hard to decide, but I think we should do it. Are you okay with that? I'm not angry, and I agree, Dave reassured her. I'll get the test kits this week. You know this won't change how much I love you, right? I know, Analyse said softly. It won't change how I feel about you either. I just want to know. Dave felt relieved after discussing the DNA test with Analyse. Although there was still much work to do, he could see the end of this nightmare approaching. Meanwhile, Rich was driving west on Interstate 80 through the night, stopping at a McDonald's for breakfast and a break just before entering Ohio. Using his iPad, he searched for destinations and settled on Sioux Falls, a remote but large enough town to blend in. He booked a cheap furnished room and planned to abandon his car near Fargo, take a bus back, and keep a low profile. I feel better now that I have a plan, Rich shouted aloud. But as he drove, doubts crept in, and he realized how flawed his plan was. Despite his fear, he felt trapped and couldn't turn back now. Thoughts of surrender crossed his mind but frightened him even more, so he continued. He thought about his family and the harm he had caused, forcing himself to focus on his anger, knowing that regret had no place now. Eventually, exhaustion forced him to stop in a Cracker Barrel parking lot to sleep for a few hours. On Sunday morning, he woke up just in time for breakfast and then returned to the road, driving aimlessly while reflecting on his actions. The weight of his choices grew heavier, but he tried to push it aside. By dusk, he stopped at a restaurant near Omaha, still 200 miles from Sioux Falls, where he had a reservation at a motel. As he approached the restaurant, two men asked if he was Richard Pearson. He knew it was over, the FBI had caught up to him. On Monday morning, Dave brought donuts, bagels, and coffee for an all-staff meeting. Before that, at 8 a.m., he met with Dev Leon and Tammy Fields to announce their promotions. In the meeting, he introduced them as the new sales team. The staff was supportive despite the recent turmoil. After delivering the news, Dave refocused on moving forward in both his business and personal life. The next day, Rich was formally charged with multiple offenses, and the FBI began investigating the clients involved in the bribes. Knowing he would lose some clients, Dave started restructuring the business, planning to spin off part of manufacturing and develop a new distribution company. He finalized these plans just in time for Linda's return, knowing he would need all his strength to face the challenges ahead. That Friday night, Dave and Analyse dined at their favorite Chinese restaurant, their routine disrupted by Linda's absence. During dinner, Dave received a call from Linda, who wanted to discuss her return home. Dave's cold response made it clear their relationship was strained. He confirmed he had hired a lawyer and ended the call quickly. Analyse noticed his tension and offered silent support. Despite the heavy atmosphere, their bond strengthened as they faced the situation together. The next morning, Analyse and Dave were in the living room when Linda walked in. Analyse immediately went upstairs without greeting her mother. Dave noticed Linda's resentment before turning back to his iPad. Linda greeted Dave, but he signaled for her to wait. After finishing his game, he set the iPad aside and asked if she had read the documents. Linda confirmed she had and asked if they could talk about staying together as a family, expressing her fear of everything changing. Dave questioned if she meant staying married while she continued to do whatever she wanted. Linda insisted that wasn't her intention, saying they had been a happy family and she couldn't bear the thought of it ending. She promised never to risk it again. Dave, unconvinced, pointed out that she hadn't considered the consequences of her 17-year affair and now wanted to stay only to avoid the fallout. He accused her of enjoying herself with his brother while he remained unaware at home. Linda denied loving Rich, admitting she didn't even like him much, describing him as selfish and terrible in bed. Dave, incredulous, muttered that she had risked everything for 17 years with a man she didn't even like and had never tried to end it. But even so, she couldn't explain why. Linda, sobbing, admitted she didn't know why she had done it, calling it a stupid and selfish mistake. She explained that the first time was a drunken mistake, and then Rich had threatened to tell Dave if they didn't continue. She acknowledged that she got a slight thrill from getting away with it but couldn't fully explain her actions. Now resolved, Dave told Linda it was over. Seeing her cry, he softened slightly, offering her time to pull herself together and asking if she wanted some water. When she whispered yes, he handed her a bottle from the fridge, then told her that when she was ready, they would discuss the paperwork upstairs. Alai sat on her bed, listening to her parents argue, trying not to cry. Hearing their pain, especially her father's, broke her heart. She decided to build a life with Dave while her mother would have to endure her own misery. Dave went to the bathroom to release tears he didn't want Linda to see. He knew he had to toughen up and distance his emotions. When he came out, he saw Linda walking slowly toward the dining room, her swollen face and red eyes showing her sorrow. Dave felt torn between satisfaction at her suffering and a desire to end her pain. So, he decided not to shout anymore. He apologized for yelling and promised to keep calm. In a barely audible voice, Linda said he could shout, curse, or even hit her if it meant they'd stay together. But she knew that wouldn't happen. Dave confirmed that he wouldn't do it and asked if she had read the papers. Linda softly replied that she had, admitting they were fair, but she begged him not to give up on them. Alai offered to give up some money instead, but Dave firmly refused, explaining that he and Alai had a special bond, and he couldn't lose her too. He also pointed out that in a few months, Alai would be 16 and could choose for herself, so it was unwise to go against her wishes now. Linda argued that she wouldn't lose Alai and needed to heal their relationship, which couldn't happen if Alai wasn't with her. Dave insisted that it wouldn't work that way, noting that all Alai felt toward her mother was anger, and that living apart would help her process it. He warned that forcing Alai to stay would only make things worse. Frustrated, Linda shouted that she wasn't going to give up on Alai. Unknown to them, Alai had been listening nearby. Suddenly, she burst in, angrily confronting her mother and expressing every betrayal in an outburst lasting over 10 minutes. Alai unleashed her fury, facing her mother each time Linda tried to retreat. At one point, Alai held her mother's chin, forcing her to confront the anger she had caused. Dave watched, then gently pulled Alai back, reassuring her by saying he loved and needed her. Calming down, Alai responded firmly that she wouldn't stay and warned that if they forced her, she would make Linda's life miserable, and Dave wouldn't be there to stop her. When Linda asked what happened to calling her mom, Alai coldly replied that everyone wanted to know, adding a sharp insult before returning to her room, feeling both satisfied and relieved. Overwhelmed with sadness, Linda realized she couldn't stay in the house during the divorce. She didn't want to rent her own place, as she planned to fight for custody in the house, so she temporarily moved in with her sister. The divorce case was in front of Judge Stan Lawson, who had reviewed both petitions and had a clear idea of the likely outcome. Although he usually recommended counseling, the 17-year affair with her husband's brother made reconciliation unlikely. The main issue was the custody of their daughter. While the judge typically favored the mother, Alai was nearly old enough to decide for herself, so he decided to see how things developed in court. The session began with Linda's attorney stating that his client did not want a divorce and was requesting 12 sessions of counseling. Anticipating this, the judge dismissed the idea as a waste of time and money. Next, the attorney raised the issue of custody, but the judge interrupted, saying he wanted to speak privately with Alai and inviting her to his office for lunch. Despite Linda's objections, the judge firmly denied her request, ensuring Alai's safety with a court officer. In his office, the judge warmly welcomed Alai, encouraging her to relax, though she remained respectful and formal. Their conversation began casually, allowing him to assess her maturity, which impressed him. When they discussed custody, the judge explained that custody usually went to the mother and asked Alai how she felt about it. Alai firmly stated that this traditional approach didn't consider everything that had happened and wasn't what she believed was best. She explained that she belonged with her father, citing their close relationship and the emotional harm her mother had caused. When the judge mentioned that her mother might need her too, Ali clarified that her stance wasn't about revenge but about doing what was right for her and her father. She also mentioned that in 3 months, she could choose where to live and that if forced to stay with her mother now, she would return to court to change the arrangement. She insisted that staying with her mother would only make things worse and hinted that she would find ways to be with her father regardless of the court's decision. Intrigued by Ali's maturity, the judge joked about her considering a career in law. Ali shared that she planned to attend a debate team next year. The judge congratulated her, assuring her he would make his decision soon. Ali responded confidently, hoping the judge would still like her after his ruling. They shared a light-hearted moment before the judge escorted her back to her father. They exchanged smiles, shook hands, and said goodbye. When Ali found her father, she told him she felt the meeting had gone well and that they would soon know the outcome. As court resumed, the judge said, "I had a good conversation with Ali, and both parents should be proud of her. She presented her thoughts calmly and professionally, and I considered them in my decision." Just as the judge was preparing to continue, Linda abruptly interrupted, urging her lawyer to speak. The judge, clearly irritated, banged his gavel and asked, "Is there a problem, counselor?" Apologizing, the lawyer responded, "My client has informed me of a matter that could impact your decision." "Proceed," the judge said sternly, "but it must be important." The lawyer took a breath and stated, "Mrs. Pearson believes there may be a possibility that Mr. David Pearson is not Ali's biological father. This could affect his custody claim." The judge's expression remained steady. "Counselor, this is irrelevant under Pennsylvania custody law, and you should know that. But for clarity, Mrs. Pearson, do you have any evidence?" he asked, addressing Linda. "Not yet, Your Honor," Linda admitted in a subdued voice. Her lawyer then requested a delay for a DNA test. Dave glanced at Ali, who smiled knowingly. His lawyer stood and replied, "Your Honor, we anticipated this and have certified DNA test results proving that Mr. David Pearson is indeed Ali's father." She handed the documents to the court and Linda's lawyer. "Thank you, Counselor Hull. This is a relief for both father and daughter. The motion for a delay is denied." Linda broke down in tears as her lawyer tried to console her. Judge Lawson continued, "While primary custody generally goes to the mother, I believe it's in everyone's best interest to honor Ali's wishes and grant Mr. Pearson's petition. Mrs. Pearson, it saddens me to see this family torn apart." He then issued the final ruling. The divorce is granted, with a final review in 6 to 8 weeks. Court is adjourned. Ali ran to her father, hugging him tightly as they left the courtroom. Linda, with anger in her eyes, approached them. "You won, are you happy now?" she asked Dave bitterly. He replied softly, "What's happening to you, Linda? No one won today, we all lost. Go home, and we'll talk later." Linda slumped onto a bench, her attorney trying to console her as she muttered, "But I love you, this isn't right." Dave heard her but kept walking, holding Ali close. In the following weeks, the consequences of Rich and Linda's actions unfolded. Rich pled guilty to avoid trial and a lengthy prison sentence, revealing hidden assets and agreeing to serve 8 years in federal prison. Linda found a job 25 miles away and bought a townhouse with funds from Dave, close enough to see Ali but far from old friends who no longer welcomed her. Dave focused on restructuring his business. Dee excelled in sales, securing large orders from new clients and retaining most involved in the bribery scandal. Tammy supported him perfectly, ensuring smooth operations. Dave planned to expand the sales team, with Dee as the likely leader. As for his personal life, Dave showed little interest in dating despite encouragement from friends and some women at church who seemed eager for his attention. He wasn't in a rush. He missed Linda more than he expected but didn't dwell on it. When he thought of the future, only one woman came to mind. One Wednesday morning, months after the judge's ruling, Hen came into Dave's office with the mail. "Hey boss, looks like your divorce papers arrived." Dave opened the envelope. Yes, right on time, 7 weeks later. I'm officially a free man. How do you feel about that? Dave paused. It's a mix of sadness, happiness, relief, and anxiety. Mostly, I feel anticipation. What Linda and I had was special, and now that it's over, I want to find that special feeling again. You know what I mean? Yes, I understand, Han replied with a half-smile, hesitating as she started to leave. Then, in a soft voice, she confessed, Dave, I want something special too. I've been afraid to say this, but I love you. I've loved you since the day you interviewed me. You don't have to respond now, but if you're interested, invite me out when you're ready. My answer will be yes. Dave moved behind her, gently wrapped his arms around her, kissed her on the neck, and whispered, dinner tonight? Still in his embrace, she turned to see his smiling, bright eyes. At my place at 6, she suggested. I'll cook, and wear something casual. Her wide smile lit up her face. The bottle of wine and lasagna disappeared quickly as dinner became an afterthought. Their deep friendship blossomed into something more. Han whispered to Dave that she wanted to be with him. Dave smiled and told her he could think of many reasons why. She playfully moved away, teasing him with a mischievous look, demanding all those reasons immediately. Dave eagerly accepted, ready to take her to the bedroom. Over the next 2 weeks, Dave and Han spent every evening together, enjoying romantic dinners at his place. One night, Dave whispered that the time felt right, and without hesitation, he led her to the bedroom, feeling his life fall into perfect harmony. Later, Dave told Han he was done holding back, confessing his love for her and saying he never wanted their relationship to end. Han smiled, assuring him they had each other and that if he was sure, she wanted them to stay together forever. Dave joked that it might make walking difficult, but he was ready. Han teased him, calling him clever but clarifying that she knew what he meant. Dave recognized that, while others might think they were moving too fast, he didn't care. Han agreed, sharing that she had carried these feelings for 5 years, and it felt right. 6 months later, they married at their church, celebrating with a casual backyard barbecue with 200 guests. The kids enjoyed the pool and entertainment, while the adults danced and relaxed under a tent. A small band played, and everyone had much to celebrate. Some were surprised by how quickly they married, especially since Han was 8 years younger than Dave. The explanation was simple, they knew they'd found the right partner. Plus, Han was 3 months pregnant, and at 30, they planned to have more children. As the party wound down, Han noticed Linda had arrived and went over to greet her. Both women were uncertain about the visit, but Linda quickly eased the tension by smiling and hugging Han, warmly congratulating her and commenting on the wonderful celebration. Han thanked her, joking about Dave's pulled pork, and asked how Linda was doing. Linda admitted she was still working on herself but was much better than months ago. She assured Han that she was genuinely happy for her and Dave. At that moment, Dave joined them, giving Linda a warm hug and expressing his joy that she had come, though he wished she had arrived earlier. Linda explained she didn't want to be the ex who stole the spotlight but reiterated that she was happy for them. Dave thanked her and asked if she was ready for Ali to spend 3 weeks with her while he and Han were on their honeymoon. Linda replied that she looked forward to it, though she hoped Ali wouldn't resent her too much. Linda mentioned that Ali felt guilty about some things but reassured Dave they'd be fine. Dave laughed and asked if Linda would meet her emotional support animal, which left her puzzled. She asked if he still had Banjo, then laughed, saying Banjo would be with Ali, clarifying that she meant the pig that Aaron had. Linda accepted an invitation to join them for a plate of food. Any lingering tension dissolved as Han and Linda joked about throwing Dave into the pool. No two divorces or breakups are alike. People react differently when life falls apart. After discovering Linda's affair, Dave doubted he would find happiness again. Ali mourned the loss of her family, and Han feared living without love or settling for less. They were all broken. But in the end, Dave, Han, and Ali found greater joy than before. Though everything fell apart, they hoped Linda and Sonia would find similar healing, only time would tell. 10 years later, the pastor asked, "Who gives this woman to be married?" Dave responded firmly, "Her mother and I." He then placed Ali's hand in her groom Nathan Lawson's, Judge Stanley Lawson's grandson. Dave joined Han, who was shedding tears of joy. Linda sat nearby with her fiancé, and though Han and Linda had rekindled their friendship, Dave kept his distance from his ex-wife. He no longer felt the need to avoid her. His love for Han and their 3 children had healed the wounds of the past. As Dave sat down, Han whispered, "Nice touch, Mr. Dave." He smiled proudly at his 10-year-old daughter, Sarah, who was Ali's maid of honor. Their youngest, Jean, was the flower girl, and little Dave Jr., now 3, was the ring bearer. He quietly savored the love and pride he felt, deeply grateful. Ali had graduated at the top of her class from Temple University Law School, where she met and fell in love with Nate. Over time, Dave and Judge Lawson had become close friends, making the union of their families seamless. Nate focused on criminal law, joining Bill Hardwick's office, while Ali pursued family law with Angela Hull's team. The changes in Dave's business had exceeded expectations, and at 48, he and Han planned to retire when he turned 55. Though not a millionaire, his financial planning made their goals achievable. Sonia remarried a wonderful man who managed the eastern territory of a pump company that Dave's business represented. Along with Rich's 2 children, they now had a 4-year-old daughter. Dave's parents had retired and were in good health, spending Sundays at family dinners with Dave and Han. 3 months after Ali's wedding, Dave's father broke a long-held promise and mentioned Rich. He informed Dave that Rich would be leaving next week and wanted to see the family before he departed. Dave admitted he had considered reaching out since Rich's release from prison and had heard that Rich joined a missionary group. Dave's father confirmed this, explaining that Rich would be going to Tanzania as a water purification specialist after connecting with a prison ministry. Dave agreed to the visit but warned that Sonia and her family might not like it. His father reassured him, saying they were fine with it since Rich had already visited them. Dave was surprised, as Sonia hadn't mentioned it, but his father reminded him that Dave had made it clear he wanted nothing to do with Rich. Dave acknowledged this and asked his father what he thought of Rich now. His father reflected, admitting that Rich's actions had felt like a personal attack and had hurt him deeply. He said that without Ali, he didn't know how he would have managed. Dave was reminded of how they had stayed strong through it all. His father shared that Rich had always felt like an outsider in the family, seeing Dave as the perfect son he couldn't compete with, even though they had never shown favoritism. After reflecting, Dave decided he owed it to both himself and Rich to talk and clear the air. His father was relieved to know that Dave felt that way. Dave shared how recently he had felt overwhelmed with joy and peace, thinking about how things had turned out after the chaos of 10 years ago. He noted how Sonia had remarried, the money Rich had taken was recovered, and his business had flourished. When his father asked if Dave was suggesting that what Rich did turned out to be a blessing, Dave admitted that in some ways, it had been. Although the end of his marriage with Linda was a tragic loss, he expressed a deep love for Han and wouldn't trade her for anything. His father asked if Dave loved Han more than Linda. Dave explained that he loved Han differently but with the same strength, if not more. He still had feelings for Linda, but they were not the same as before. What mattered now was his commitment to Han. His father felt comforted but then asked how Dave felt about Rich. Dave admitted that, although he hated what Rich had done, he was strangely grateful for how things had turned out. Rich had paid with over 8 years of his life, and Dave no longer felt anger or a desire for revenge. He still loved Rich because he was his brother, but he would never trust him the same way again. His father admired Dave's perspective, recognizing that it wasn't easy to find positives in such a situation. Dave reflected on how everyone involved, except perhaps Linda, had ended up in a better place. Sonia was happier, his business was thriving, and his marriage with Han and their 3 children brought him immense joy. Even Rich had found a better version of himself through prison and faith. His father called Dave an optimist, to which Dave responded by asking if that was a bad thing. His father expressed concern, remembering how devastated Dave had once been. Dave agreed but shared how he eventually realized that what Rich did was like breaking a valuable piece of porcelain. With God's help, he had picked up the pieces to create something even more beautiful. His father asked if Dave was saying that what was broken now was better than ever, and Dave affirmed that it was. His father expressed pride in how Dave had turned life's challenges into something amazing. Dave expressed gratitude for the support he had received from his father, Han, and Ali, acknowledging that he couldn't have done it alone. His father reassured him that what he had built was truly special and expressed his joy at living to see it. Dave, content, shared that he was glad his father had witnessed it too and believed that Rich would also be happy to see how things had turned out. He felt it was time to talk to Rich and finally put the past behind him. His father agreed, confident that Dave would handle it well. Feeling ready for whatever lay ahead, Dave reflected that although the past had shaped him, it didn't define him. He had found a new future filled with love, hope, and the promise of something even better. And for the first time in a long time, he felt truly at peace.